Good morning, everybody. My name is Sally Watts, and it's my pleasure to be your service leader. We are recording this on Friday, May 15th, and I want you to know it's absolutely gorgeous outside. Oh my golly. The rain has stopped, the flowers are in full bloom, and you'll notice I pulled some rhodies and put them into the front of the altar this morning. Came from my front yard. It's in honor of Rhododendron Festival Weekend, which is not happening because of you-know-what. We hope by this time next year we'll have Rhododendron Festival and the parade on Sunday, and all things will be back to the way they should be when it comes to the Rhododendron Weekend. With me today is Catherine Hemmons, who will be with us shortly. I've got the faithful Jim McDermott on the camera. Wave to everybody, Jim. Thank you. And Ray over here on the computer, he's my sound guy. So wave to everybody, Ray. Yay.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask Ray to cue it up. We're going to sing Spirit of Life. Catherine's going to come on up and we're going to sing together. So Ray, hit it. So we have a few announcements this morning. One is our annual meeting of the membership. It's in the bylaws that say we have to meet first Sunday of every year, first Sunday in June every year. So everyone in our e-blast list is invited to attend. You'll be sent an invitation. If you want to be a part of our annual general meeting, just log in on our Zoom connection. The next board meeting will be Wednesday, June 10th at 3:30. This is a change from Tuesday the 9th, so just so you know, if you want to join us, send us an email and we'll send you an invite. I heard from the Dons that the free lunch program has been fully funded, yay, through the end of the year. And through the kind generosity of people, there's enough money to feed up to 30 people every Tuesday and Thursday from 11 to 1 at the subway on 126. That is just fabulous news. Thank you all for all your work in that. Next week we have a special sermon from someone I've not yet seen yet. His name is Reverend Dennis Reynolds. I believe he comes to us from the UU Church in Eugene. And then on the 31st, we have our own Rosetta Jansen, who will be giving us a wonderful and unique service. So I encourage everyone to be there for that as well. And please know the program committee is meeting regularly, and we're establishing our future messages from guest ministers and such. And we're happy to announce that Carrie Gottfried will be with us once a month for a while. So virtual Carrie Gottfried, we love her, as well as Reverend Barbara Tenhove will return, and a couple of other familiar faces. And finally, if you or someone you know wants to help with music, contact our music director, Laura Lee. She will help you get involved if you want to sing, if you want to record, if you want to just play. We'll try to put you into our recordings in the future, okay? And also, if you want to be a part of this team of Jim, Ray, Catherine, and me, and you want to be on the recording, if you'd like to read one of our chalice lightings or the joys and concerns, anything, if you want to be a part of our recordings on Friday, let us know. We'd be glad to bring you forth, okay? And then finally, I hope you'll join us on Zoom at noon, and we'll get together and we'll debrief today's message and maybe have a little coffee and conversation. So join us at noon on Zoom. So at this time, I invite Catherine to come forward and read our chalice lighting as I master the clicker and light the flame. Catherine? Like I said.
Good morning, everyone. I have a chalice lighting by Molly Brewer. A chalice lighting for when things aren't okay. My beloved people, I cannot pretend, and so I will not tell you to pretend, that everything is okay right now. I won't tell you that there's no reason to be angry, or that you must be optimistic or at peace. I cannot pretend these things, so I won't tell them to you. So all I ask in this moment is that we remember the words by Rebecca Parker. There is love. And this is love with a big L, I mean universal love. There is love holding us, and there is love holding all, every one of you. By the light of our chalice, let us rest. Let us really rest and know that this is so. Let us rest in this love, and so it is.
Thank you much, Catherine. That's just beautiful. So as we do every Sunday, we talk about the offering for the week, for the month, for the next 2 months. Recently, I presented a large check to the Florence Food Share, Colin, who's the operations manager, that represented the generosity of you, our friends and our members. I know this can be a difficult time to make a choice of how to spend your hard-earned and often saved money. And many of you have chosen this fellowship for your generosity, and we are grateful, very grateful for your continued faith in what we are providing you. I encourage you to continue feeding your jar at home. Keep putting that money in that jar. And when it gets too full, take it to the bank, cash it in, and send us a check. We'll appreciate that one. The community partner for May and June is the Boys and Girls Club. And I just received a letter or a text from Chuck Trent. I'm going to see if I can find it here real quick. Chuck is the director of the Boys and Girls Club. And he says here, we are going to reopen the Teen Center on June 1st. And the elementary program will reopen June 15th. We start the USDA Summer Food Program on June 1st. The kids will get a hot breakfast at 10 a.m., hot lunch at 2 p.m., and snack before they go home each day. The meals will consist of the following servings: fruit, milk, veggie, a protein, and some grain. Most of the veggies will come out of our garden at the club or from the farmer's market, so that it is local and fresh. Same thing with fruit. We want everything local and fresh. Best regards, Chuck, and thank everyone for your support on our behalf. So that's where your money will go if you choose to donate to the Florence Boys and Girls Club. So you can send us a check, you can designate how much goes to FOOF and how much to the Boys and Girls Club. You can go on our website and click the donate button and do the same thing. It's pretty easy to do. So remember, your contributions are received in grateful appreciation. Now it's time for some music, performed by Jeff Lovejoy. And it is our hymn titled, Wake Now My Senses. I asked Ray to get that fired up, and we're going to be listening to a beautiful song, Wake Now My Senses. Enjoy. bit into the music we have here at FOOF. As Unitarian Universalists, we believe it is important that we take care of each other. When we care for each other, our connections to each other become stronger. The interconnectedness of us all is part of our seventh principle. Sharing good times and bad times helps us to be more caring people. And caring people is one way we are you every day. We share our good and bad times in a ritual during Sunday worship called Joys and Concerns. We're reminded that joys are things that have happened that make us happy. Concerns are events that make us worried or sad. Some of the reasons we share good and bad news with each other: so we can comfort and help each other, so we can celebrate together, keeping each other informed of important events in our lives, so we can feel closer to each other, so we can think of ways to help each other. We might be able to help someone if we have gone through a difficult event similar to them. And some people might not have family or close friends with whom to share their feelings. I'm going to ask Catherine Hemmons if she'll come forward and drop a shell from our stash of shells down here and drop in the water for me, because I'm feeling an overwhelming joy at all the beauty outside. And it might not have been possible without so much rain. I think Ray has a joy.
My nephew Christopher graduated college.
His nephew Christopher graduated college. Thank you, Catherine. Anybody else? Jim, do you have a joy or a concern?
Today is Karen's birthday.
No way! Today is Karen Hernandez's birthday. Are we going to sing happy birthday to her? We are. We're going to sing happy birthday to you, Karen. And everybody else that has a birthday in this month. But for you, Karen, it's your birthday on Friday, May 15th, right?
Right.
That's the day we're taping this. So are we ready? Okay.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Karen.
Birthday.
Happy birthday to you. And many more.
And to everybody else in May. But this one is especially for Karen because, well, Jim's right here and he told us all about it. So thank you very much. So if there's anybody else, if this past week we know you have experienced a joy or sorrow and perhaps didn't think to share it with us in person or by email, I'm going to ask Catherine to drop another shell in the water to represent our care for you. This week, if you wish to share a joy, a concern, or a sorrow, send us an email or call the care line at 541-590-2656. So at this time I invite Catherine back to the pulpit for a special reading and to introduce our musical interlude and our guest at the pulpit today. So Catherine?
Boys and Girls Club. Hello again, everyone. This reading was selected by our guest speaker, Sarah Skochko, and it's entitled How to Fight by Thich Nhat Hanh. Thich Nhat Hanh is a Buddhist monk, a Vietnamese monk, who suffered all of the horrors of the Vietnam War, and yet he approaches life with peace, love, and especially forgiveness. The ability to apologize. The ability to apologize sincerely and express regret for the unskillful things we say or do is an art. A true apology can relieve a great deal of suffering in another person. Once we realize that we may have said or done something to make another person suffer, we can find a way to apologize as soon as possible. We can, if we can, we should apologize right away and not wait for the next time. We can talk to the person directly, Or if not, we can call them, or we can even leave them a note. Don't wait. Don't wait for those apologies. A straightforward apology can have a powerful effect. We can just say, I'm very sorry. I was unskillful, not mindful, and not understanding. I love that word, unskillful. The Buddhists use it a lot. I love that word. We don't need to justify or explain what we did or said. We just apologize. I invite you to contemplate these words while enjoying a musical interlude from Jeff Lovejoy entitled Tumbling Plants. Then listen to our wonderful message right after from Sarah Skochko entitled How to Apologize. Take it away, Jeff.
Good morning, Foof. I'm Sarah Skochko, and I don't know about you, but as of today, I've been working from home for 66 days, and so has my partner. And while many of us are feeling very isolated right now, which is its own burden, those of us who've been quarantined together with our loved ones, or not so loved ones, are learning a lot about how to have good relationships. Or not. And as you use, we talk a lot about being in right relationship with one another. And a big part of that is knowing when we need to apologize and being able to recognize what is a good apology, what counts as an apology. So I thought we could talk about that today because I thought it might be useful to some of us who are trapped at home with people we love, because it might come in handy. But even if you're isolated during this time, I think it's worth thinking about and talking about. So I wanted to start off not with an example of a good apology, but with one of the worst apologies I have ever heard. The year was 2017, which was the peak of the Me Too movement. And so, just as a trigger warning, this does reference sexual assault. So in 2017, celebrity chef Mario Batali was accused of assaulting no fewer than 4 women. And in response, he sent out an email. It began, quote, "As many of you know, this week there has been some news coverage about some of my past behavior. I have made many mistakes," he wrote. And then he went on to say that he knew he had disappointed his friends and family, apologizing to them. At no point did he admit what he had done, or mention that there were victims, or apologize to the victims. Sorrywatch.com, it's a website that analyzes public apologies, later wrote, "If you were just reading this statement after waking up from a cryogenic sleep of several months, you would not know what this was about. Racism, sexism, plagiarism, it's a mystery." The tagline for 2017 as a year might as well have been, "Mistakes were made by people who might have been men, and now that they've been caught, they probably regret whatever those things may or may not have been, but whatever they did, they surely didn't mean it." You know, it was all very unsatisfactory at the time and since then, and as Sorrywatch likes to point out, regret is not an apology. You can't just say, "I regret what happened," without actually apologizing. But where Batali's email made non-apology history was how it ended, with what Sorrywatch called, quote, "the fatal pivot to the cinnamon rolls." "I will work every day to regain your trust," Batali wrote. "P.S. In case you're searching for a holiday-inspired breakfast, these pizza dough cinnamon rolls are a fan favorite." And then, bafflingly, there was a beautiful picture of the cinnamon rolls and a link to the recipe, and that was the end of the apology. What? What in the cinnamon heck was this person thinking? So this blew up on social media, predictably. And one Twitter user envisioned Batali arguing with his PR team that morning. "Okay, fine, a quick apology, but then the rolls." Another user wrote, "You can't Martha Stewart your way out of this one, champ." 2017 had brought an avalanche of allegations against powerful men, followed by their apologies. Which is when I stumbled across Sorrywatch.com and became an amateur connoisseur of apologies. Vintage 2017 was terrible. And my fascination is partially because I myself have historically not been great at saying I'm sorry, or admitting when I'm wrong. It's really hard, guys, it's really hard. It's really hard for some of us to admit that we're wrong. It's hard for us to admit that we're human. Saying you're sorry feels like a 1-2 punch of admitting that you do things wrong and also that you have feelings. It can be really taxing to the ego to do. So I would much rather be some kind of fairy, like a mythical fairy creature who lives in the woods and just glows with dignity. It's much more dignified than being human. But here I am, and as a religious person and a person of faith, I am committed to being a good and a decent human, as inconvenient as that might be to my ego. And it's my understanding that an earnest, cinnamon-free apology is often an integral part of that. I do wish sometimes that Unitarian Universalism had the kinds of formal structures and rituals around repentance and atonement that you might find in Judaism or Catholicism. Because everyone in possession of a working conscience will, at some point or another in their lives, whether or not they're religious, at some point they're going to need to repent for the good of their own soul or conscience, if you will. Not as a kind of get-out-of-hell-free card, but because a rift has been opened within them that we know we must mend, or we will not be whole again. And often that means apologizing to someone else. Sorrywatch.com, that website, they have years of archives of just everyday apologies, mea culpas, including some notably good ones, and they're tagged with the tag, good apologies, like the writer Chuck Klosterman apologizing for using the R word and then making a sizable donation, or George Takei apologizing for an ableist Facebook post, or Chris Hemsworth apologizing for dressing up like a Native American for Halloween, and Questlove from The Roots apologizing for making fun of Japanese accents on Instagram. All of those were really misguided, hurtful actions, but they were followed, all of them, with great apologies. Questlove, for his part, wrote this beautiful, beautiful post on social media where he wrote, "Clearly I didn't intend to offend anyone, Asian or otherwise, and clearly I thought wrong. In hindsight, it's easy to see how my post was yet another example of the ugly American flipping of yet another ugly, racially, culturally insensitive script. So let me make this abundantly clear. The ish I said was dumb. Period. Period." Boom, responsibility. And he went on to say, "Look, I'm a human being, and dumber yet, I'm a public figure. If you're lucky enough to be either of the aforementioned, then not only should one stay clear of saying or writing hurtful things, one should actively work against feeling comfortable and thinking hurtful thoughts." He gave no excuses for himself. And I love that while he did start out by saying he didn't mean it, he didn't just rest there, because that's not a sufficient apology. He immediately followed it up by explaining that even though he didn't mean it, his words still hurt people, and he understood that what he said was wrong. You know, in church life, we sometimes step on each other's toes, or we say insensitive things. And I think that those little conflicts often end with us saying, "Oh, you know I didn't mean that. You know me. You know I would never say anything like that. You know I didn't mean it." Which might be true. And you can say that. You can absolutely say, "I didn't mean it." But that's not a complete apology. It's not a complete apology anywhere. Now for me, if my partner does something hurtful, I do like to hear, "I didn't mean it, Sarah." That does make me feel better. But that's not enough. It's not enough. So how do we craft a good apology? Well, it's not that complicated, actually, once you know how to do it. Maimonides, the 12th century rabbi and Torah scholar, wrote a really great guide, so I feel like we've had plenty of time to learn this. And I feel a little bit ashamed that I spent so many years being so afraid to apologize when this was already laid out. But here it is. He wrote that a proper attempt at repair, or teshuvah, has 4 steps. Number 1, confess the mistake and ask for forgiveness. So you have to actually say what it is that you did and admit that you know it. You can't deny that the other person was hurt. Number 2, express sincere remorse, promising not to do it again. And that does mean including the words, "I'm sorry," or "I apologize." None of this, "I regret that it happened," or "mistakes were made." You have to actually say sorry. Number 3, do everything in your power to right the wrong. So if you break your friend's vase, you have to glue it back together for them or get them a new one. Number 4, change your behavior in the future. It's no good apologizing if you just keep doing the same thing over and over again. As my sister likes to say to her teenager, the best apology is changed behavior. So in other words, own it, say sorry, fix it, and don't do it again. I think maybe the hardest part is actually owning it, the first part. Admitting that something bad happened and you did it. Yes. Sorry Watch explains good apologies this way, and this is pretty similar. A good apology uses the words "I'm sorry" or "I apologize." It names the offense. It takes responsibility. It shows understanding of the effect, the impact of the offense, not just what you intended. It explains the steps being taken to ensure that the offense never happens again. And if possible, it makes amends or performs reparations. So sorrywatch.com and Maimonides are both on the same page about this. And it's true that making amends might include bringing cinnamon rolls to the person you care about. It's possible to integrate cinnamon rolls into a good apology. Yes, absolutely, but they themselves are not a substitute for all those other parts. I would add that while a good apology is primarily for the benefit of the other person, not ourselves, it carries no expectation of being accepted by the wounded party. And this part's tough. Just because we apologize doesn't mean that the other person needs to forgive us. So how many times in your life have you been still mad at someone and heard them say, "But I said sorry"? Like, okay, no, that's fine that you said sorry. I still get to be mad for a while and I'll forgive you when I'm ready. And that's fair. Just because someone says sorry to you does not mean that you need to get over it right away. It's not a get out of any kind of trouble free card. Let me tell you, if you've been badly mistreated by someone, you do not owe them forgiveness, even if you're pressured. I think in some religious communities there's a ton of pressure once someone apologizes to give forgiveness and be graceful, but you don't have to do that until you're ready. And that might be never. There are some walls, some good boundaries that we put up for very good reason, right? If someone wounded you horribly when you were younger, and now you've grown up and put space between yourself and them, you absolutely do not have to let them back into your life just because they say sorry. Don't do it. Take good care of yourselves. And the sad part about that is acknowledging that sometimes other people might not be ready for us to come back into their lives. That we can make amends and say sorry, acknowledge how we hurt them, apologize from the heart, make amends, and they might still not accept. There are some things, once broken, that cannot be fixed. And that's one of the toughest parts about being an adult and being in community with others. I think if nothing else, I hope that one of the takeaways that you might have from this morning is that you can expect better. Not that everything will always be okay if you just apologize well, but that you can expect better from yourself and from others. I hope you hold yourself to a pretty high standard. That when someone tells you their feelings have been hurt, that you don't just go right to the, "Well, I didn't mean it. You know I didn't mean it." Or the "I'm sorry you feel that way." Don't do it. Hold yourself higher than that. Acknowledge that you hurt them. Make amends. Say you're sorry. Try not to do it again. Being a Unitarian Universalist means always, always, always striving to do better in our relationships, in our lives, always improving ourselves. And I think that no matter how far along you get in your spiritual journey, there's always room to do better at our relationships. According to both Sorry Watch and Maimonides, that old "I'm sorry you feel that way" doesn't constitute a real apology, and which you should already know by now. Because we only use words like that to get out of apologizing when we think we shouldn't have to. And sometimes we're right. Sometimes we actually shouldn't have to apologize. The other person's overreacting. That's true too. But you need to be clear about why you're doing it, right? We need to do that process of internal discernment. It's one thing if the other person's being unreasonable and you pull out the old, I'm sorry you feel that way, to establish a good boundary between yourself, to make it clear that you're not responsible for the other person's emotions. And you're not. You're only responsible for your own emotions and your own behaviors. But we have to be careful when we use non-apologies like that. We have to be careful that we're not using it as a way of evading accountability and responsibility because it's too hard and it feels uncomfortable for our ego. Because you probably also know how it feels when you've been actually hurt and the person who actually hurt you trots out that old, I'm sorry you feel that way. It doesn't feel good, does it? So I can't really tell you a hard and fast rule for when you need to apologize. As is often the case for Unitarian Universalists, you are on your own recognizance. I can't tell you, beyond it being when you've caused someone pain or harm, and the apology itself does not stand to make things worse. I trust you to know, or at least suspect, or when you figure it out, to then go back and make it right. Each of us, each Unitarian Universalist, has to decide for ourselves what it means to live a good and a moral life. And while your church community can guide you, the ultimate moral arbiter you will have to answer to is your own conscience. It's not an easy job, is it? It's the work of being human. It's a dance that each of us has to do. It's at times graceful, at times awkward. We don't always know the steps. But we can learn a few. We can fall down and get back up, and we can practice together. Amen. Blessed be. Take care, everybody.
Just so you know, Sarah Skochko has been with us in person a couple of times over the year and several times virtually, as she was today. We sure do love her messages. We love her presence. And that smile is, oh my gosh, so precious. Sarah's going to be ordained minister at the end of this month. I believe it will be in Eugene. We're going to try to see when it is. Maybe we can send a contingent over there safely to be there and celebrate with her. She's also been called to a church in Austin, Texas, and will be leaving this summer. We'll miss her. So at this time I invite Catherine to come forward. We're going to extinguish our flame as I share a message from Maureen Killeran titled, This is the Message of Our Faith. This is the message of our faith. To act with passion in the face of injustice. To love with courage in the midst of life's pain. This is the meaning of our chalice flame. May it empower our hearts until we are together again. Thank you, Catherine. And now we get to hear from Jeff again. I invite Catherine to back up. We're going to sing our peace song. And let's sing our peace song and have a good time with this, shall we? Thank you.
That was meant to be, with love as our center, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally.
Thank you, everybody. I hope you were singing at home while we were doing this. In closing, I leave you with words from Robert Gilbert entitled, "As we leave this community of spirit." As we leave this community of spirit, may we remember the difficult lesson that each day offers more things than we can do. May we do what needs to be done, postpone what does not, and be at peace with what we can be and do. Therefore, may we learn to separate that which matters most from that which matters least of all. Hope to see you all at noon on Zoom, where we will have a wonderful dialogue circle about today's message and reconnect with everybody. Join us at noon on Zoom. Thanks, everyone.